Well, hey guys, happy Sunday. We are back with a part 2 to yesterday's skincare Q&A. I am answering skincare questions that I've been getting over on my Instagram. I know not everyone follows me there, but you guys really seem to enjoy getting a little bit more detail with regards to some of these answers. I'm wearing my Marion Bright sweatshirt again. I'm one of those people who will wear, for example, Christmas socks in July because why not? But a Christmas sweatshirt, that's a little bit too obvious. My CC Plus Tinted Moisturizer has SPF. Is that enough for everyday use, or do you suggest SPF alone as well? So in order for that to be enough, first of all, you have to ask, does it call itself broad spectrum? Broad spectrum means it protects against UVB and UVA. If not, which some makeup products with SPF are not broad spectrum. If it's not, then no, it's not enough. The second question is, are you going to apply this particular product to the entire face, and are you going to apply a thick enough layer in order to achieve this stated SPF? When it comes to makeup products like CC creams, most people put them on sparingly. And for this reason, I pretty much always suggest not relying on them as your sole sunscreen. For example, are you going to put CC cream like up in here? Are you going to put it out to the side of your face? Maybe. If you put it on in a thick layer all over the face, then sure. When I personally use CC cream in the past, I use it more just to like my mid face, in which case that's just not enough for sunscreen. So yeah, I definitely suggest using a good base layer of a broad spectrum sunscreen before the CC cream. And then if the CC cream happens to have SPF, fantastic, you get a little bit of extra in those areas. Can I take a vitamin A supplement, 10,000 international units, for my overall skin health and acne maintenance? I don't recommend doing this. I mean, unless you have been advised by your healthcare provider to take a vitamin A supplement for some sort of underlying health reason, you have malabsorption issues, this can actually be pretty harmful to you to take vitamin A supplements. They're fat soluble, so they're not readily excreted like in your urine, for example. They're stored in the body. So you can actually get to unhealthy levels of vitamin A by taking supplemental vitamin A. It can affect your liver negatively, and it has a really long half-life in the body. Yes, it can impart some modest help with acne, similar to isotretinoin, aka Accutane. And a lot of people are under the false assumption that, oh, it's a supplement, it's got to be much safer than Accutane. It's not. It's actually a lot more harmful because it has a significantly longer half-life, meaning once you stop, it's going to take a long time for it to get out of your system. If you've developed liver problems while taking it, well, that could really be a nightmare, as opposed to isotretinoin, where it's dosed appropriately to minimize harm to the liver, and you're monitored for adverse effects. So at the slightest indication that that might be happening, then the dose is adjusted or it's stopped. So that's one reason why they're not safer. The other reason to be really mindful of this as well is if you are a woman of childbearing potential, because if you are going to conceive, this is a teratogen, taking supplemental vitamin A. Just like isotretinoin, it can cause serious birth defects. The problem with supplements is that these are the kind of things that they're not required to disclose, in contrast to isotretinoin, where you have to go through this whole process to confirm that you understand how teratogenic it can be, which means harmful to the developing baby. So yeah, I say be cautious, not to mention it actually can end up drying out your skin quite a bit. I mean, there are a lot of unwanted side effects to vitamin A toxicity. It can cause increased intracranial pressure as well. Someone asked me about the eyeliner I am wearing. Okay, I have it on now. It's the e.l.f. eyeliners. I have been loving them. So previously I was wearing this lavender, opaque lavender or lilac eyeliner. I loved that color. It was from Glossier. I was on the hunt for like a drugstore version of that. I couldn't quite find that color, but the e.l.f. pencil liners are the same consistency and offer that intense opaque color. So I got the blue, which I'm wearing now, and also the white, which I'm wearing now. So I do half white and half blue on my upper eyelid, kind of blend them together a bit, and then I do a smudgy brown on the bottom. But I am also wearing, as a side note, makeup from the L'Oreal Beauty Advent Calendar. I'm wearing the lipstick, a lip liner, the blush, the mascara, and the brow pomade. So wait to the end of the video because I will do the unboxing of the next few days that we need to catch up on. Am I more likely to have increased bruising and swelling if I take ibuprofen an hour before laser therapy, specifically BBL targeting broken blood vessels? So ibuprofen can increase the likelihood of bruising with a procedure. It thins the blood a bit, which makes it more likely that it causes bruising. Can I use benzoyl peroxide body wash once a day? So yes, it can be used daily if tolerated. It can be drying depending on the percentage, of course. For example, panoxyl has a 10% and they have the 4%. 4% will be less drying overall and probably easier to tolerate using it daily. That being said, some people tolerate the higher percentage daily. Some people just use the benzoyl peroxide wash in areas of concern, like for acne, for example, the chest and back, if that's where you're getting breakouts, or if you're looking to use it for body odor, you might just choose to use it as a wash under the arms. Just make sure you rinse it off thoroughly under the arms, because man, it can really dry out your arms otherwise. But yeah, you can use it once a day. Can you talk about the potential link between tattoos and melanoma? The link is kind of unclear with regards to tattoos and melanoma. Some studies suggest an association, others do not. So it's kind of difficult to detect that. That being said, melanomas certainly can and do arise within a tattoo. They tend to be much more difficult to detect because they're obscured by the tattoo, and the tattoo ink can make it difficult to interpret the pathology because of where it's residing in the skin at that point. So it can create challenges and as a result either lead to delays in diagnosis, more advanced melanomas. So that's definitely something to think about. You know, if you have a strong family history of melanoma or you've already had a melanoma, you know, you might want to think about that, especially if you're thinking about getting it in sun exposed areas and you've had a lot of sun exposure. It's definitely something to consider. And I think it's something that warrants a lot more research, honestly, because tattoos, they kind of get a free pass, especially from people who tend to be very resistant to medical therapies and to, you know, chemicals and sunscreens, but they're willing to inject tattoo inks into the body, which contain heavy metals and all sorts of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. And tattoo ink ends up, you know, lodged in the lymphatics and in the lymph nodes. There are also all sorts of adverse reactions that can occur within a tattoo to the tattoo ink. Granulomatous reactions, sarcoidosis often can be triggered by a tattoo in people who are inclined to have that condition. So yeah, long story short, tattoos definitely, there's more to the tattoo story, I believe, but more research is needed. And to be clear, I'm not saying that if you've got tattoos, you're gonna go down in flames. Not at all. I think they're safe, but I do think that it's worth really doing more research with regards to the implications of tattoo ink in the body over time. I think that's definitely something worth doing more research on with regards to human health, especially given how popular tattoos are. Tattoos have been around for forever, since ancient times. You know, it's not anything new, but I do think, you know, the modern landscape of tattoo inks, I think it's worth doing more research on and not just, you know, putting our hands up and being like, well, you don't know. And like I said, I always think it's kind of interesting when people are pearl clutching about the chemical sunscreens. It's like, you got a full tattoo sleeve. Like, what are you talking about? You've injected the chemicals directly into your body. I mean, it doesn't get more chemical in the body than a tattoo. What recommendations do you have for cardio for someone who has rosacea and is prone to flushing that you can do while still trying to control the symptoms? So one tip I have to reduce flushing when it comes to working out with rosacea is to do it in a cool, climate-controlled environment with good air circulation. The thing about rosacea is, like, if you start to get overheated, that can precipitate a flush, right? So one thing people don't realize in general about working out, say on a treadmill, for example, is that if you can get a fan going over your skin, it will help you tremendously, because what that's going to do is help facilitate evaporative water losses, aka the evaporation of sweat, which cools the body. As opposed to if you don't have good circulation of air over the skin, you start to sweat and it just kind of stagnates there, right? It can't evaporate and cool you. It starts to make you feel even hotter. You sweat more, and that can lead to flushing. So simply the act of having a fan, it can change the game for your workout, regardless of if you have rosacea or not. But for rosacea, it can be very helpful for cutting down on the risk of flushing. The other thing is to have some cold water that you can sip on throughout your workout to keep the temperature down in your your head, basically. If you can have some ice chips that you can suck on, that's great as well. You have to be strategic with where you work out. Like I suggested, good circulation is important. If it's a hot, humid summer day in Houston, do you really want to be running outside? I mean, anybody who wants to run outside, July here is, yeah, they're intense. But if you have rosacea, it might not be the best thing for you. You might want to get a treadmill and work out indoors with a fan and air conditioning for the sake of your skin. Also, the other thing too, speaking of running outside, sun also can trigger rosacea as well. Not to fearmonger being outside. I think being outdoors is great for everyone, but you just kind of want to be strategic with your workouts and where you work out. The other thing is to avoid hot yoga, I suggest, because the hot room or warm saunas, all that can definitely lead to more flushing. Skin cycling, Instagram trend, or is there something to it? So skin cycling was popular, really popular, 2 years ago? It's still popular. It's a trend on social media started by a dermatologist, which at its root is actually pretty logical and pretty helpful in the sense that it suggests basically alternating certain skincare ingredients on different days so as to minimize irritation overall. And I think for just like a general low risk skincare approach, I think it's fine. And I actually have a whole video about it, talking more about some of the nuances of it. But I also think that it will end up selling some people short on getting the best out of like a topical retinol, for example, topical retinoid, which are intended to be used daily, at least in the beginning. Say in the beginning, because if you're using a prescription retinoid or a topical retinol or retinaldehyde for improving the visible signs of photoaging, you want to work up to using it daily. But the study suggests that at least with prescription retinoids, tretinoin, for example, that if you've been using it daily for a year, then after that, you can switch to like 3 times a week as maintenance and maintain the results that you get using it less frequently. In other words, for the anti-aging, improving the look of sun damage effects, you don't have to use it every day indefinitely. But ideally in the beginning, you would work up to using it every day for a year at least. When it comes to treating a disease like acne, yeah, then you really want to be working up to using it daily. Being really rigid with how frequent something is used can sell you short on the efficacy of the ingredient. Also, I think it tends to generalize chemical exfoliants a little bit too much. And as I've said before, the performance of a chemical exfoliant is highly variable. Some of them can be used twice a day for some people, like salicylic acid face washes can be used twice a day, every single day for people who have acne. And a lot of times they benefit from using it that way. Whereas for other people, glycolic acid may be something that you only tolerate and benefit from using a couple of times a week. Maybe the product even specifies, hey, this is meant to be used a couple of times a week, or maybe it's only supposed to be used every day for a week, once a month. There's a lot of variation out there. So it's hard to make blanket statements about the frequency of use of a cosmetic exfoliant, chemical exfoliant, because there's a lot of variability out there. My moisturizer already has 5% niacinamide. Do I need a separate niacinamide serum? You do not. You do not need any additional niacinamide. In fact, I think it's pretty easy to get the benefits of niacinamide without buying a lot of products, because if you have a facial moisturizer and a sunscreen that have niacinamide, congratulations, you're going to likely be using niacinamide twice a day. The sunscreen in the morning, the moisturizer at night before you go to bed. Twice a day is what many of the studies examined as far as benefits, and 5% is a reasonable percentage to get those benefits. So I think you're perfectly, there's no reason to buy additional. If you buy something else that has niacinamide in it and start using it, is it harmful? Well, in some cases it may be more irritating. It's not clear if it adds anything to the overall benefit of niacinamide, but long story short, no, you don't need another one. Is it okay to alter between adapalene and tretinoin on different nights? So this approach isn't necessarily wrong, but I don't generally recommend it to people because it's not necessarily evidence-based for offering any benefit. And in some cases, I do believe it could actually make irritation worse. But if it's something you have started doing yourself and you find works for you and isn't causing you any issues, then it's not harmful to continue doing that or anything of that sort. Can you use azelaic acid and glycolic acid on the same night? So azelaic acid can be used alongside anything. Copper peptides, niacinamide, vitamin C, glycolic acid, it can be used alongside anything and is generally well tolerated and is typically used twice a day. Anyways, guys, those are the questions that I wanted to touch on for today's video. I'm going to switch gears and head on over and show you guys the rest of the advent calendar that actually I've been opening the doors every day this week week, so you'll see the footage of that here. Day 14, what is in store behind the door? See there, I made a rhyme. I'm getting good at opening these doors. Ooh, this looks juicy. We have the L'Oreal Everpure Bond Repair Oil and Serum. Yes, 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 yes. I am really excited to try this. I love hair serums like this. Let's see what day 15 brings. Sneak on in. Here, let's make it not a topple fest. Ooh, liking the packaging that I'm seeing. Day 15 brings a lipstick in the shade Worth It, which I'm guessing complements Dewy Worth It, the liquid blush. Update on this, I have given it a try. It's one of those where a tiny bit goes a long way. There's the shade, looking pretty. Okay, day 16. This is a Slim Shady window here, or door. I'm betting it's going to be some kind of a pencil. Oh, yeah. Looks like we got another anti-feathering lip liner in the shade Worth It. So this one looks like it'll be lighter compared to this one, which I did try this one, and it's a little too dark on me, but I have to say it's a really nice application. Very smooth, easy to work with, nice tip. Day 17, what lies behind that door? Ooh, another lipstick. I've really been enjoying the Worth It shade. This is shade Le Rouge Paris, a gorgeous red. And for day 18, what is in store? Looks like another mascara something or another. We have the Double Extend Beauty Tubes mascara. I have to say I'm pretty excited about this. I have been using the mascaras so far that came in this calendar, and I'm really happy with them. Day 19, what does it bring? Ooh, another Le Shadow Stick. Le Shadow Stick in the shade Brown Bliss. That'll be nice and complementary to the other shimmery one. Day 20. The L'Oreal Infallible 36-Hour Defy Transfer Setting Spray. I want to say I heard really good things about this. Like, it keeps your makeup on through sweaty workouts. All right, guys, so I hope you all are having a fantastic weekend and that you enjoyed this video. It was helpful and educational. On the end slate, I will put yesterday's Q&A. If you missed it, we answered a lot of great questions there. Thank you all so much for leaving questions on my weekly Instagram skincare Q&A in the comments over there, and checking back on my Instagram stories for the responses, or hitting up the Q&A highlight on my profile page. But if you're like, I don't do Instagram, don't worry. That's what this channel is for, those of you who watch. But if you want to ask a question, do so now in the comments. That way, next time I do one of these, maybe next weekend, for example, I can specifically answer YouTube questions from you all who are not on Instagram. So we might do that too, if you leave the questions. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If so, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.